We're going to stay here all night if we have to, so let's get started.
It's time, America, for the #1 conservative common sense podcast that's calling out all the social justice, political correctness crap and putting it on the run.
Do you think you can handle it?
So hop in and buckle up and get ready to ride with two straight-shooting, tell it like it is, ex-street cops.
And they know how to party with few inhibitions.
As they give the special interest and weak-kneed politicians a swift kick in the ass.
Wow, is that legal?
With some good old-fashioned common sense.
Bring it on, baby.
It's Cop Talk USA with your hosts, Murillo and French.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm Roger French. Welcome to Cop Talk USA. I'm here with my good buddy, partner, Dave Murillo.
Frenchman, how are you?
I am pretty good. Great. I'm excited. Cyclones, number 9 today.
Yeah.
Number 9 in the nation. A team that won 2 games all last year are now number 9.
Oh, yeah. That's cool stuff.
Oh, yeah. I'm excited. How about you? How's your weekend?
Great. We celebrated Christmas this past Saturday evening with the kids and grandkids because that's the only day that worked for my kids and Linda and I's kids to be there with the grandkids. So, yeah, we got that. 11 grandkids. I'm starting a GoFundMe page to help pay for
I saw a picture of all those kids. I'm trying to count on my fingers. I'm going, oh, my gosh, he's got a bunch of them.
There's 11 of them, and they range from like 6 months up to like 11 or 12.
Now, how do you do that? Every kid gets a gift? You go by
my wife, bless her heart, she handles Christmas. You know, she does 4 or 5 gifts for each kid, and then we give some money to each one of our kids and their spouses. So she does a great job every
Excel
year.
spreadsheet, it's all graphed out.
Well, I think Linda might. Yeah, she's a shopper. She does the shopping thing, and I think the FedEx man hated our guts.
Well, I bought some stuff on FedEx for I got the kids and grandkids, and I'm not going to say what I got them because obviously they might listen to the program, but. I feel pretty good about my deal this year. So, this is our last show before we're going to be done for, 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Then we come rip-roaring back in 2022.
Recharge our battery. Roger, after tonight, I won't see you till next year.
Oh, I'll change completely. I'll be completely. But I do want to see a New Year's Eve picture of you in your best dress.
Yeah, well, you're going to be waiting a long time
in the ball. I mean, speaking of that, what do you guys do for New Year's? Do you go out?
I'm going to be 65 coming up here in March, Medicare eligible. So
there you go.
That's the mile marker, man. Get that health insurance monkey off your back. But we just sit around the house, watch TV. Linda fixes a few snacks. Some of the kids might stop by. We may even watch a grandkid or two if their parents are going.
Right.
So that's kind of the way our evening goes.
Well, it just seems like everything going on. A lot of people, I think, are staying home. I don't see that many parties. There used to be. It would be the night to go out and rip roar. I call it amateur night. All the rookies who never get drunk all year. That was their night to go get crazy. But I think it's kind of toned down a little bit.
Well, especially now because they have another variant of this. What is it? Omicron or what's this new?
I don't know.
COVID variant.
The Dave Murillo.
Yeah, it sounds like an action hero figure. It's Omicron.
Well, it's out. I saw that. And they say, and it's hard telling. First they say you're vaccinated, you're gonna be fine, and I don't. And then I hear it's not going to be. It's not as bad as what's currently out there. Yeah. They're trying to preview it like a movie coming this fall. Omicron. So anyway, New Year's Eve though was a fun time. I usually stay home, cook. Sometimes I entertain, sometimes I don't.
Yeah.
Depends what I got going on in my life.
Yeah.
Go get a nice prime rib. Of course, this year it'll be like buying a car if you want to.
You got the hot tub this year, Raj, so don't get all messed up and go out in the hot tub and drown, for Christ's sake.
It's the hot tub time machine. So, David, you know what? Let's talk a little sports a little bit.
All right.
Have you seen... and I know we're cop show, and
we'll
I apologize to our listeners.
This kind of goes into it.
Yeah. But did you see where they're talking about where Texas is paying their people? They're I think it's next year. They're proposing paying these players $50,000 a year salary to play. And I hear this.
I've always maintained that they should pay all Division I, all Division I AA athletes a livable per diem during the sports season. But $50,000, this is just my opinion, that's way too much.
Why?
But, conversely, the argument can be made these stud athletes, whether they go on to the NFL or the NBA or whatever, they make their respective universities filthy rich. So, I mean, I understand that point too.
Well, it's a real cloudy thing. Couple things. You know, if you're going to play football, pay football athletes, you know, are the other athletes going to demand money? Are they going to, you know, demand same pay scale? Number one. Number two, I just don't want this to become something between the haves and the have-nots. And by that, I mean the bigger schools have the money to afford to go out and pay higher salaries or higher, whatever you want to call this, 50 grand, where another school can only pay 10. Mm-hmm. So I think what needs to happen is somebody needs to step in and say, okay, if you want to pay players, here's the deal. You know, this is what it would be, $8,000-$10,000, whatever, something that every school can pay and provide. And that's going to be Division I, because you get in Division II and III, their schools aren't going to be able to pay that.
Yeah, and you know, because of my youth football endeavors, I have actually been to in person a place where usually only a select few people can go. I've been to the NFL Combine numerous times out at Indianapolis, and in order to get there, folks, you got to be a stud among studs. So you want this competition piece in college ball. You want all of them to be playing against each other personally and team to team. So you get the best of the best, because the average shelf life for an NFL player, do you have any idea what that is, Raj?
No, it's not very long.
3 years at best.
Well, you know, I don't like, deep down inside, it troubles me about paying college kids. But on the other hand, I understand these kids should make some money. So maybe there's ways to say, okay, we're going to pay for other services, health. I don't know. And I don't know the deal. I just know when you have schools throwing out 50 grand to a high school kid to come play football, and then all of a sudden, what's next? We're going to get in a bidding wars for these players. I don't want to see that. They need to have some guidelines and put some caps on some things.
Well, Texas, since they're opting out of the Big 12, they'd be better off spending that money on salve and cream for their fannies. They're going to get their asses kicked.
Well, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, too, you know, you go against Alabama and LSU and those schools, they've got money.
Oh, yeah.
So that's it's a little crazy. The other thing I want to get into, and this follows along the same lines, is there was an article that came out. And Massachusetts State Police Union, for the state troopers up there, are all over the NFL. Mm-hmm. And evidently, the NFL is back to supporting organizations that are anti-law enforcement, defund the police. That old narrative that was out a year or so ago, they're still doing it. They're giving money. Yeah. And I don't understand how the NFL can get behind those people.
They're pandering. They think they're doing people a favor by pandering to folks of color. And what they're doing is they're just making jackasses out of themselves, because, like I said numerous times, as a Hispanic, I don't need any liberal white person, male or female, looking out for my brown self. You go pander someplace else, and that's what they're doing. And they're also a day late and a dollar short, Roger. Well, that was big last year, and that whole movement has fallen flat on its fanny.
Well, they're giving money to organizations that you know, espouse anti-police rhetoric. Mm-hmm. And when you support somebody who supports that, what are you doing? I remember before all this happened, they couldn't climb over first responders. But remember, every football game was first responders holding the flag and doing this. And then they just did a complete 360 after this George Floyd garbage started. And now they've gone the other way. And it just appears like they're
it's hypocritical too, because if you've been to an NFL game, and I know you've been to tons of them, they have cops working on the field, in the parking lots. Police officers are all over the place.
Well, I just think that if you're going to take that position, you know, somebody's going to all of a sudden, and I think these unions need to go out there, and if you've got an NFL team in your town, you need to make it known. We're not going to work your games, and we're not going to attend your football games as fans, and we're going to ask anybody who supports law enforcement because it makes me not want to watch it.
You know, I ran the Des Moines Police Union for 6 years as chief union steward, and I will tell you something. If you're one of these dipsticks who believes we don't need police officers, then why don't you have your legislators write language that allows police officers to strike? And then you let me know how that works for you.
Oh, exactly.
It's illegal for police officers to strike, and for good reason, because they are the most critical core service government provides in the United States at the local municipal level. Let us strike. See how that works for you.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you, they don't have to work off duty.
No.
And they ought to shut this down right now.
Yeah.
And I bet it's not on a team level. I bet it's on a league level. And by that I mean I bet you have owners in cities like Jerry Jones in Dallas who supports law enforcement.
He's a stud.
Supports the American ways.
Yeah.
Supports that. And this is New York. This is the commissioner up there, and they're just. I understand you have majority of your football players are people of color. I understand that, but and I didn't mind. Okay, you want to put signs on the back of your helmets that say diversity or whatever. That's okay. But when you come out and support people that disparage law enforcement, that actively go after them, and there's numerous cases of BLM. It's a criminal thug organization. I'll say it all day long. And you won't. And I dare anybody to come on this program and challenge me to talk about it because I'll point out 10 million things about it.
In 34 and a half years in police work, I only saw 2 officers in that 34 and a half year time period that used inappropriate racial epithets in a professional setting, and they got rid of them both. There's this desire to try and paint police officers as racist or thumping or nightstick heavy, and it's the narrative and ideology of people who have no idea what they're talking about.
Where they're a day late and a dollar short.
Yeah,
and they always seem to be. You remember when who was the guy that was running the pit bull, the dog?
Michael
Vick.
Yeah.
He was running that. And then all of a sudden, it took him a while, but then they came out and condemned him. Hey, you should have been on the front end. Do you wait? It seems like they wait for something to come up, and then they jump on board and want to be this big community activist group. They need to wake up.
Yeah.
They really need to wake up.
They could better spend that money by continuing to pump funds into their CTE programs and research, because that's real. That affects their players. That's their bread and butter. It's a violent game, and if you want to spend money, NFL, spend it on your own players and put money into research and treatment for chronic traumatic encephalopathy.
Yeah, and I'm going to say this to these groups: if you really want to help your communities, it's not defunding the police; it's funding them, giving them more tools, supporting mental health in there. We had Chris Scott on last week, and he was talking about how Des Moines is adding a clinic guy in there, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
Support that. That goes hand in hand. They want to add a guy in dispatch that can talk about to the officers when they get that. Maybe I guess even go out on scene and help. Or training an officer like Chris has. He trained one of his officers.
Well, if you think about it, for decades, people who were violent but had emotional problems, the bottom line was sending a police officer there. And that's not always the best thing to do. The police will go with the mental health care worker, the mobile crisis worker, but the two go hand in hand. And police officers' desire is never to take somebody with mental illness to jail. They need to go to a treatment center that's funded by your respective state properly.
But I promise you, every violent trip you go on, and you've been on this just as I, and you've gone on a domestic, and you've got or a shooting or something where violence has occurred. Those people have mental issues, whether it's just created or what. Every one of those calls has a mental issue.
And a lot of times they're under the influence of illegal narcotics
or alcohol.
Yeah,
or alcohol.
So people get violent, and what I wish I could do. I wish I could take some of these sissy Marys that are on CNN and MSNBC and grab them by the scruff of their neck and shove them in front of some of these violent people, because they're always the Monday morning quarterbacks on how police work should be done or done better. I like to see them get their asses kicked and then talk to them the next day.
When you go up and you got to fight a guy, and now everybody has a camera, so you're fighting for your life because if he gets that gun, he's going to kill you.
Oh, yeah.
You got to fight him, and things don't go quite right, and all of a sudden he gets hurt, and then you got these people criticizing, well, maybe you could have done something. Our jackass president, Mr. Wound him in the leg or shoot the gun out of their hand. Or
what an idiot!
I saw he's on the stump. I saw an article today. He was out kowtowing, talking about police reform
Bottom line is with Biden, and anybody with 2 cents worth of smarts can look at him and tell that he's not right in the head, and the left wings have buyer's remorse for putting him in office. We have 2 catastrophic failures in the Oval Office.
Absolutely. Well, Bob, I think we want to go into our segment. We lost a couple officers. fallen officer segment. We lost 2, which was still too many, but it's a better number than what we were going. But before I go into these 2, I want to make everybody well aware that, COVID is still, we don't have the time to go through all the COVID deaths. There's just so many of them that COVID's taken. And one thing I did notice today, I was looking at them, and some of these guys that are passing away of COVID are younger guys. Mm-hmm. These aren't 40 and 50-year-old guys. They're in their 20s that are going. So I hate doing that, and I just want to apologize. But Zachary Cottingen, I think I'm pronouncing that right. He's from Louisville Metro Police Department. He was killed in an automobile accident. He was investigating an abandoned car and was struck on I-64 there, Louisville. He left a wife and 2 children. They had to lose him. And we had a second one, and this one kind of unusual, but jailer Robert Daniel is his name, and he was through Grove County, Kentucky. He was down there during the tornadoes, and they were evacuating, and they had about 100 people. They were evacuating, including jailers and everything, and he was the last one out, and before he could get out, the roof collapsed and killed him. Yeah. And that was a tornado that came in on top of all those people that were passed away. We don't lose very many officers due to weather, I don't think, but this was
it happens, but you just hate losing these dedicated blue suits, the men and women who are out there 24/7.
And he was
65.
And Daniel was survived by 4 daughters, 3 sons, 7 grandchildren, 2 brothers, and a father. So I mean, we hate to hear that.
Well, then what hits home for you and me is yesterday we learned that Des Moines PD lost a heck of a retired detective in Jim Rowley.
Yeah, we were just talking about Jim.
Yeah. He's if you remember a few episodes back, folks, we had John Shaver on, and John Shaver and Jim Rowley were best buds for decades. They could work a homicide case better than anybody. And Jim Rowley retired in 2001, and we lost him over the weekend, and it just leaves a void that you just can't fill.
He was known as Big Jim. Big Jim, and he was Hoss, he was everything. I mean, and a hell of a good guy.
Oh, he's a great guy.
Great wife and a pretty damn good detective.
He was. He loved to tease people, and he loved to have it thrown back in his face.
How long's he been retired from?
He retired in 2001.
He'd been down there, 35 years?
I think he left with about 30 years on. I had the honor and opportunity to work with him and John for 4 or 5 years before they retired. They come on in the 60s, but guys like me who came on in the late 70s, we had the honor and dubious distinction of working with post-World War II hires who were on the way out, retiring, and a lot of Vietnam vets. So every time I think about my police career so far as the time I was there, I just couldn't feel and be more blessed to have worked with those men and women.
I just, like I said, I remember the first time I met Big Jim. He was going out on a search warrant. He looked like there was a cop show that was on in the 60s. And he had the big trench coat, and there were a couple of these guys, 3 or 4 guys, and a couple of uniform officers. And Big Jim had a big shotgun with him, and they were going out they were going to make somebody's day real quick. And I remember seeing him, and it was just like, wow.
He used to love my cartoons. He liked to be poked fun of, and Shaver and I used to flip him grief about wearing Hoss's hat on Bonanza, because he was a big man like old Hoss, and he just beamed with pride.
You know what I would have liked? I would have liked to have been Jim's partner in some of those trips, bar fights going in with Big Jim, because he'd just come in, he'd fill the door, going through the door.
Yeah.
And if you're fighting, you want to fight the cops, especially today.
Yeah.
What would be interesting would be to see today's protesters dealing with the way things used to be handled back in the 70s and 60s.
It wouldn't go well for the protesters.
No, and see a guy like Big Jim having them get scream in his face, that lasts about 2 seconds. And they'd be a foot off the ground.
Well, it wouldn't have gone well for them when you and I were on the street either. You didn't have to take that kind of BS off people, but we weren't thump heavy.
No.
If we were assaulted or somebody struck us, we used force back. But when the fight stops, the fight's over. Real simple.
Well, we always had a thing. I knew the old saying was, the South Side guys would run from you, the East Side guys would fight you, and the West Side guys would complain on you.
Yeah,
that was kind of the deal. They'd fight. So you kind of knew the East Side guys. You could get into a fist fight with a guy, a burglar over there, and fight, and pardon my language, beat the crap out of him, and he'd never complain. He'd that's a good officer. He beat me fair and square. Now the West Side guys, you say something mean to them, they complained on you. And the South Siders were all burglars; they just run.
I remember real tough street cop I worked with who, at the end of the shift, we'd go down to Howard Johnson's on Ingersoll, and he had to have extra powdered sugar on his French toast.
Hey, easy with that. Easy with that. Anyway, we got a great show coming up tonight for everybody. I want to let everybody know that got John Quinn, Chief of Police Waukee, coming on very shortly. We're doing that. We're going to be gone for 2 weeks. We're taking off. We'll be back on the 7th, I believe, coming back there. And so stay tuned. Well, now I want to go into a segment. And we're going to change it up this week. We're going to do, instead of doing our ass hat of the week, we got a little something different going on this week. Something new. Now it's our rock star of the week.
Coming on here! I get you!
That was awesome!
I'm going to do my rock star, if you will.
Okay.
I don't have an ass hat this week. I know you do, Roger, but
I always do. I always do.
But I've got a genuine rock star this week, and I would be amiss if I didn't talk a little bit about him. And I'm referring to senior United States Senator Joe Manchin.
Right.
Joe Manchin is my rock star for parting ways with the progressive left of his party. He put politic party aside and voted no to Biden's crazy $2 trillion spending bill.
Right.
And here's the analogy I'm going to use if you have a little hard time understanding what Biden and these goofballs were trying to do. Say you make $50,000 a year, okay? Yeah. But you have the ability to use charge cards up to the collective point of $1 million.
Right.
So you go out and you charge up $1 million when your annual income is $50,000, and you end up paying interest on $1 million forever, and you never touch paying off the principal. That's what they were trying to do. And then the thing's full of pork. It's full of all sorts of crazy, zany, left-wing stuff that doesn't make any sense.
The environment, AOC, the squad kind of crap.
Goofy stuff. So bless his heart, Manchin had the wisdom and foresight to say, hey, enough's enough. We're done.
I just wonder, I don't know much about his state that he's from, but I think
West Virginia.
Coal miners out there, they
voted overwhelmingly for Trump.
So they're conservative, and like I said, we talk about the Blue Dog Dems. There's good Democrats out there.
Yep.
He's certainly raining in Joe's parade. I'll say that.
But Joe doesn't know. He doesn't know if he's on foot or horseback.
Well, I think, and I did see some people, the squad, crying about, they're going to be all upset, and this is going to backfire. When people in your own party start rolling against you.
Here's how the squad can get their spirits back, French. I'm just going to throw this out, okay?
Oh, this
why don't they just get in a government-provided airplane that burns fossil fuel and fly out to San Francisco and have a smash and grab party and get all their Christmas presents?
Go to the left coast and have at it.
Go out there, to Gavin Newsom land or fly out to the East Coast and do the same thing, or stop by Chicago. Why pay for your Christmas presents?
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad for Manchin. I almost wanted to call his office and say, look, support. But I hope the Republicans don't get too much behind him because I think they'll hurt him. But I don't know. I think common sense is starting to kind of come back a little bit.
It's rolling back.
Just like we saw against the anti-police thing.
Yep,
that's kind of going away, and common sense is coming back a little bit. Still got a ways to go, but anyway.
Yep. So that's my segment there for this week.
Well, I'm proud of you, Dave. Good job. Well, next, Bob, we've got a guest. I want to get him on. Today, Dave, we got a great guest. I want to introduce him. He's a friend of mine. He's certainly supports the right school. He's an ISU guy. He's a friend of mine for years. John Quinn from Waukee. John, how are you today?
I am doing fantastic. I just want to say this. It is an honor and a privilege to be here with the two of you.
Oh, boy.
Wow. I'll tell you what. It's one of those things I'm going to check off the bucket list.
You're both together. Neither one of you are in jail yet. So you're both.
John, all the years I was on KIOA and then WHO, Maxwell Schaefer, a good friend of mine. You're familiar with Max?
Yeah.
He called my style acerbic, and that's, I think, a nice way to say I got a big mouth.
Yeah.
Not at all.
I don't know that we can't myself say that. I don't know.
It's an educational moment for me. That's all I can tell you.
Well put, Chief. Well put.
How are things? First off, before we get into this, let's talk a little ISU stuff because I'm excited. You're excited about that.
Absolutely.
Now, you used to do the radio program for the football game.
I did.
The football teams.
Yep. Sideline broadcast and then a pregame show.
And that was through, was that through Clear Channel or not?
Yeah.
Was it Clear Channel? And you retired from doing that.
I did.
This year?
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Because of my wife.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Just it was a tragic situation. She said, "Give the radio up or move out." So
Well, you got the real boss stepped in. Well, you were up there, and that's when Campbell started getting good. And well, he's been good for a while, but he's getting better and better up there. Talking about that football program. Of course, we got the basketball program doing great.
as my son says, basketball is back, Dad. I love it.
Oh, what a shocker! Shocked everyone. You and I were up there at the game the other night. We saw how good they go. I was up there Monday and or Sunday and saw them playing. They're diving for balls, shooting for things.
They practice that.
Is he not going to be the top coach of the year in the NCAA?
Oh, yeah. He's got my vote already.
I don't know what the comeback coach of the year. I don't know what you want to call him. But you take a team that's 2 whatever, and he becomes a top 10 team the next year with all new people. I mean, I don't know where you get that. Anyway, well, we need
It's leadership.
I guess
That's what it is.
Now, how does that tell me? And you and I have talked about this before, and we talked to Chris Scott about this, and we've talked to Anywhere about this. You hire some athletes, don't you? Some ex-athletes over on the for the police force. You've got Iowa players. And
Yep, Iowa State. You and I, Storm Lake.
You got them all there. Do you find those guys make great officers?
I know they do.
Does the sports and I obviously all the officers you hire are great, but do the ones that come from athletics, do they have a sense of competition, or is it competitive, or
It's not that. They know what adversity is. They know how to face it. They know that the work, the dedication, the commitment to excellence that it takes to be successful. The big thing is that when they get knocked down on their knees, they pick themselves up, they prepare themselves for the next day, and they make sure that they don't repeat or allow things to happen again. It's just, I love their work ethic. I love their mentality. Some of the most successful businessmen have been influenced by athletics.
Chief, Roger broke the glass ceiling at Des Moines PD years ago. He was a croquet champion, and they hired him. And so
I thought it was badminton. That's an Olympic sport now. So.
Well, I know Dave, and that translates to athletics in general, whether it be college athletics or high school.
And the military.
And life.
The military.
That's what it teaches you a lot about life. It teaches you, to me, it develops a heart and soul inside an individual, a passion for something to show that a dedication, a commitment, a work ethic actually pays great dividends.
Right.
And if you can recognize that, they also teaches you, there's a difference between pain and injury.
Well, you've done that. Dave ran that program, West Des Moines. You talked about that numerous times.
Yeah.
You had Alan Lazard in your program.
Yeah. Alan Lazard played for my youth league for 4 years.
Yep.
And out of the tens of thousands of kids that went through that over the 17 years we ran it, he was the only one who made it to the NFL. That shows you how the odds are stacked against you. But he got there.
But those kids still benefit from that athletics.
Oh, yeah. Well, we had a lot of our kids go up into Valley and Waukee and other places where they did well, end up at the Unidome. And some went on to Division I college. But, boy, you just got to really, really believe in the big man upstairs and work your fanny off if you want to crack at the NFL.
Well, it's that isn't even a realistic dream in my mind. It truly, those individuals that ascend up to that level of play. I tried out with the Denver Broncos. Had a great time. One thing I learned about it was that each team has a few exceptional athletes that are just truly blessed.
Bingo.
Gifted. And then all the others, they work their butts off. They truly do. They know the price they have to pay, and they know how tenuous their situation is on that roster. And so with that, they're not real welcoming to rookies because of the fact they know that they're trying to take their job away. And it is just extremely competitive. And I'll tell you what, that's the reason why you see guys play with 7, 8, 9 knee injuries, because that truly is what they want to do, and they want to be on that field, and they're willing to pay that ultimate price. And it's sometimes it's sad, but others, it truly is reflective on who and what they are.
I told Roger before you got here, Chief, I've been out to the combine, the NFL combine.
Yeah.
And when you're sitting in that stadium, Lucas Oil Stadium, and you're watching the cream of the crop and the Division I studs who are there at the invitation of the NFL coaches to showcase your talents, you don't know what a stud is till you go out there and sit down. It's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. Well,
it's unbelievable.
Yeah. And I want our listeners to know we're just not talking, and John's just not talking about talking about this off the cuff. You've done it. You played for Iowa State.
Yep.
You were all Big 12,
Big 8.
Big 8. Excuse me, back in Big 8, and like you said, you went to camps. You did it all, and we're a hell of a quarterback up there.
Well, I appreciate that, but you know what? I'm a reflection of a product of a good athletic program at Dowling High School, transcended into my success. My foundation came from my dad. I mean, just the fact that I wasn't the most gifted athlete, but I'll tell you what, there was nobody that was going to outwork me. He taught that. He instilled that into me.
What year did you graduate from Dowling?
77.
Okay, so you knew Mike Fogey.
Oh, yeah.
And Ray Gallardo.
I love those guys. Great Southside guys. Man, I'll tell you what, they were tough.
Yeah.
Oh, man, they were tough.
And, you know, Mike Fogey, monster competitive weightlifter, he became a doctor.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
He's your doctor, isn't he? Isn't he your doctor? He's got his work cut out for him, big boy. He's got his work cut out.
I think he was a urologist, wasn't he?
He's a proctologist. I think Dave goes and sees him regularly.
You just never know what path of travel life has laid out for you.
No, but athletics gives you a great chance and an opportunity. The one other thing too, athletics teaches that, you know, the academic aspect of life too, and how important that is.
Yeah.
And so with that, it gives you the discipline to know that it's a delicate balance between your academic achievements and your athletic. And so all of that put together, it gives you an opportunity to be successful in life.
Agree. You know, one of the toughest time periods of my life was in the fall of '78, going through the Des Moines Police Academy, because the classes there were tougher than any college courses I ever took. Then the physical training and the mental aspect of that. I'd come home every day, have to study again, but beat. I mean, I just fatigued. But they're building you up so you don't quit in the heat of the moment when you get out on the street.
Well, you know as well as I do, the moment you give up, you die on the street.
That's right. That's right.
You can't allow that.
No. Yeah.
Hey, John, talking about your history and stuff. Now, before you were chief in Waukee, you were with the DCI?
Yeah, Division of Criminal Investigation.
Yep. How long were you there for?
31 years.
Now, was that your initial law enforcement job?
That was it. Yep. Was graduated from Iowa State, tried out with the Broncos, came back, worked at Bankers Trust for about a year as an internal auditor, accounting degree, and then my dad taught at the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy, and he was a legal instructor out there, and he got to know, of course, a lot of members of the DPS, Department of Public Safety, and then also the Division of Criminal Investigation. And then I had to absent for the FBI, but they asked me if I'd apply for the DCI, and I thought, what the heck? There's a freeze on hiring federally. I'll give it a shot, and I fell in love with it the moment I started.
You ended up taking. I mean, you're in position there. You ran that over
as
there, did you?
director of the DCI.
Director of the DCI.
Last 4 years, yeah.
That out of all those years there, what's the most memorable case you ever worked on?
You know what? People ask that all the time. I worked so many homicides, and it was just extremely rewarding, the lives that you touch.
Right.
You actually share in some moments that, when you go home at night, you cry.
Well, that job covered the whole state.
It did.
So 99 counties, right?
Yeah.
And they call you in. The smaller departments call you in when they have a homicide, stuff like that.
Yeah, the DCI is just a request for services organization. I mean, local law enforcement had to call you in. But, we just brought calm to chaos. I mean, we just provided the resources and the expertise. And
was it always homicides, or were there other kinds of crimes that you investigated?
Well, there was a lot of political cases that we worked. I got to work the Mango Back 40 case where the legislator got the blowjob at the bar. Yeah.
How do you investigate that?
Carefully.
Enjoyably.
What's the evidence like on that? I don't know.
It was short in that case.
Short and not. Oh, that. But you had a lot of cases, a lot of variety and stuff.
I think you worked with my cousin for years, Vic Murillo.
Oh God, I love Vic.
Yeah,
he was in the criminalistic.
He's still there. He's I think getting close to retirement.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, I've talked to him. I think he's eligible, but he just kind of hangs on.
Yeah, I think he's as close to an expert in his field as an expert in the ballistics.
Yes.
And,
yep.
Yeah.
So he's a technician there.
Yeah. What's his title, John?
Criminalist.
Yeah.
Criminalist. Okay.
You know one that bothered me, and I've been to a lot of homicide scenes over my police career, Chief. But
I think I'm going to tell you, Drake Diner.
That bothered me, but I'll tell you what got to me just as much, or more, maybe, just because of I know what happened there and where it happened. that goofy bastard that killed that hunter down by Rathbun here a couple years ago. Yeah. Roger's been down to my farm down there. That happened a mile south of my property. And I know what happened. I'm sure you do too. That just rattled my cage because I've been down there hundreds of times, and to know that some goofball was out stalking a hunter in the middle of nowhere like that and did to that guy what he did, that was like a Stephen King horror movie to me. It's like, So, I always carry, Gaston Glock with me when I'm down there. He's my best friend. He's on my hip. But that one rattled me. Yeah. That was terrible.
Well, I just got to imagine you've seen so many of those.
Oh, yeah. You know what? My wife goes, you are a freak. You're the only person I know that loves to get up in the morning and go to work. And I do. I just love the challenge of putting that puzzle together and then holding people accountable for the crimes that they committed. Roger, you asked me one of the most significant cases.
One that I guess affected you the most personally.
I can't say that it affected me the most, because I think I'm tainted, a little bit mentally. But yeah, I know. It was Don Piper. He was our serial murderer, killed 5 women in Des Moines. He's the only documented serial murderer in Iowa, in the history of Iowa. And
I remember that.
Fully functional here in Des Moines. And it was a lot of fun, great challenge, held him accountable.
So did Des Moines call you in to help with that? Or was
he was hitting the suburbs.
Oh,
so it was West Des Moines, Clive. And then,
I remember that.
DC,
that was, what year was that? Probably
it was
70s?
No, it was in the 80s, at early 90s, I think 92.
Is that guy still alive? Is he in jail?
Yeah, he's in Fort Madison, the new Fort Madison down there.
He's hanging out in Fort Madison,
yeah, just hanging out with the guys, having a good time.
I went down to Clarinda one time when I was with KIOA. A gal that works in the prison invited me down there to give some prisoners who were being released a bon voyage speech.
Give him a cake and
what does that consist of?
Yeah, I've sent plenty of people to prison, as have you, but I've never actually gone inside one. And so I go there and they make me get rid of my weapons badge, sharps, keys, just like I'm
feel
being
naked,
booked.
don't
you?
Yeah.
So I'm in the hallways there and lunchtime's just getting over. And those guys in there, they can smell a cop. And I'm walking with this gal going to this cafeteria area where I'm going to give this speech. And they're walking by me. Hey, man, it's 5-0. And then one of them said something to me, and I said, hey, why don't you kiss my... And the gal there says, shut up. We're in their house. And she's right.
Yeah, you're in their house. It's one of you.
Well, they're better armed than you are, I can tell you that.
Probably, yeah.
And they're all wearing them little foam slippers and them little jumpsuits with the
they got their shanks up their rear or something. I don't know. They got to pull that out. You're going to get it, bro.
That was weird.
So tell us about Waukee. How big is the department?
30 officers and 3 civilians.
And how big? Waukee's grown the fastest growing city in the state.
We average 6 new residents a day.
6 new residents a day.
Yeah, we do.
So what are you up to now? How many people?
Well, unofficially, probably 27,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And building schools out there, like there's going to, the high schools. What do you got? 2 of them now?
2 high schools. Yep. Yeah. Northwest and then the Waukee High School.
Now, a lot of turmoil going on in Des Moines. They pulled their SROs out of the schools.
Absolutely.
Where I'm hearing now they're rethinking that brain fart. Whoever the genius was who came up with that is now backpedaling. Yeah. You guys have never done that. You guys have guys in the schools out there.
Yeah, we have a great collaborative effort with the community school district out there in Waukee. Brad Buck is just a phenomenal individual, but it transcends far before he got there. But it's a great relationship, and they recognize the value of our officers in those schools, the networking, the relationship building, and then just being mentors and coaches to those kids too. Yeah. Positive impact. It just benefits everybody. And not only that, it enhances safety, security for the students, for the faculty, and also the visitors.
You have them full uniform?
Yes, absolutely.
Because I was talking to Chris, said that when he came in West Des Moines, his guys, they originally were in plain clothes, detectives, and they were investigating crime versus doing more of that. And he switched it over, and I just think that's a great program. And I could never understand why Des Moines. Well, I know what happened. It wasn't Des Moines Police Department. It was the school administrators up there with their head up their butt, and they let a small few influence what they did. And by having them there, the kids levitate to those people.
Oh,
so that they come to those officers, and you became first name basis with them,
Well, it's not so much that. It's that when those kids graduate,
Right.
you know what? That's the foundation for the future right there. And then they teach their kids, hey, cops are good. You know, you have fun, you have great relationships. I can't tell you the number of times that some of our ex SROs who are now on the street, the kids just come up to them and say, hey, Mr. Cunningham, how you doing? You know, and I'm like, who is that? And they go, oh, he graduated 7 years ago. And guys, the kid's excited to see the officer. They have that much of a powerful impact, and it's positive. It really is.
Now you guys run 3 shifts out there.
Yep,
It's
we do.
pretty much 6:30, kind of similar like the other guys, 6:30, 2:30, 2:30, 10:30, 10:30, 6:30.
Yeah, we do.
Is it
We do the 8.5
similar?
hour shifts. Some
it-
do 10, some do 12.
Do that. You've
Yeah.
got investigative division,
Yep,
patrol
we do.
division.
Started that. Yep.
And probably administrative.
We call it
division.
our community protection division because patrol is just so limiting. Our
Animated,
guys are so
yeah.
diverse in the services they provide on the street. It's more just community-based, community-oriented policing.
Have you guys got much into mental health?
Have we?
And we brought this up again with the other departments, and I know Des Moines got a program now where they're putting a guy in their dispatch, a psychiatrist type guy, mental health guy, and they've trained him. West Des Moines has an officer, I think, trained, or they did some special training.
Des Moines sent a contingent of their dispatchers and officers down to a large department in Texas here recently
think it was
to see
Houston.
their program.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, mental health's a big deal, I think, in today's police work.
Absolutely. You know, it was something that was contained in the closet. Today, it impacts so many different people, and it's something that needs to be addressed in the light.
Right.
And so it hits every home. There's no one that's immune to it. And the thing is, the moment we realize that and we take away that stigmatism associated with it, the better off we're going to be. And it's interesting that you talk about this subject because I've been in communication with Darcy Auld, who is the Dallas County Mental Health Director. And so we've gotten all the Westcom chiefs. And so we're going to meet in January. We're going to sit down and hash out a program that best fits our needs. And not only the needs of the Westcom, departments, but the actual individuals themselves.
And when you say Westcom department, you're talking about West Des Moines, Clive, Urbandale, Waukee,
and Waukee.
Norwalk.
Yeah.
And when you have an incident, you don't use Polk County. Who do you use? You don't have anybody to use right now.
No, we do.
Do you have a crisis unit?
We do.
Where's that
Mobile
from?
crisis
Mobile-
unit from Dallas County. That's
Dallas
Darcy
County
Auld,
has
who
one.
she's
Okay.
in charge of it. There's a lot of resources out there, but we need to address this thing head on. We need to get out in front of it because it's a problem that's only going to grow. I won't say it's a problem. It's an issue that needs to be addressed.
Well, I talked to Dave, and we were talking about this earlier. We said, back in the day when we'd take calls, all your violent calls, all the violent ones, those people were in some kind of mental health crisis, it seemed like.
Yeah.
I mean, a person who's not in a mental health crisis doesn't pull a gun on another person. It doesn't, they're having some kind of issues. And sometimes they're drug related, sometimes they're alcohol related,
Yep.
sometimes they're just mental health related. But I see this trend in law enforcement. It's a good trend that you're talking about is going to, we need to address the problem, not just the jails aren't the problem, or that's not the solution all the time. It's just put them in jail.
Well, the problem is it has been the solution because the criminal justice system is the largest provider of mental health services in the world, in the United States anyway, for sure. And so with that, that's where they're getting their treatment. That's where they're getting their medications, and that's where they're setting them free. And the problem is there's no follow-up with it. And so they get out, they feel great. I don't need the drugs. They get off it, and then they revert right back to that behavior.
So especially the alcohol, dries them out and stuff like that. Well, and then the other guys, I think there's just got to be better solutions because I'm sure you have people that call up once a week. These are, and you only go, it's that same guy who's calling, same. And if we wish he would get on his meds, or, I mean, we say that about Dave a little bit.
Oh, you can say it about me too.
I don't think the general public, Chief, has any real concept of how much time police officers spend dealing with people with mental illness and
absolutely.
transporting them to local ERs or other facilities for help, calming them down, cooling them down. I just don't think the public really understands just what a huge role police officers play in that whole mix.
Well, it's not just the time that we spend on it, but let's look at it this way. So mental health call. And so we dispatch a police vehicle. We dispatch an EMS ambulance. We dispatch a fire truck. And then you got all those, public safety providers that are accompanying those vehicles. And you look at the wear and tear on the vehicles. You look at the time that's consumed, the salary base. it is a large amount of resources and money that are really being deployed and used, and it's not a great utilization of those resources. We're not maximizing our potential, and so those are the things that we have to sit down and look at. In fact, I've tasked Darren Rainey, who's the chief over with Westcom, and so he's our communications center director. Asked him, I said, hey, give me the stats associated with all deployment of what we call resources towards these mental health calls for service. And so right now we're collecting all the statistics. We're trying to find out if we can put a dollar figure to how much money is spent on these calls associated with mental health. And then if we can, do we need to divert or develop a diversion program where maybe it goes to, crisis or mobile crisis where they can come out and handle it as compared to the police, compared to the meds, compared to
once you establish there's no violence there, but this
absolutely.
is an early follow-up thing or something that they can do. Yeah,
because
I firmly believe that police officers, through repetitive calls to service for people with emotional problems, I firmly believe that they develop a unique ability to about 95% of the time connect with these people and de-escalate them.
Yes.
And a lot of times other providers, they'll look at me and say, how'd you do that? And you read people.
Yes.
You can tell if somebody's just needing somebody to get in their column with them and listen to them, or maybe they're not being heard, or maybe they just need somebody to be with them and take off into another room and just shoot the breeze. You develop that talent, if you will, as a police officer.
You do, absolutely. And the problem was we had to develop that because of the fact that there were no other resources that we could rely upon. And I don't want my officers to be street corner therapists. That's the best way to put it. I don't want them to do that. There's professionals out there that can provide this service and need to be there present with these individuals. And so with that, that's the reason why we're looking at investing into other programs, other alternatives, diversion programs, so that we can get the right resources to these individuals and then address their needs.
Now, Chief, we're seeing a trend, and we saw it this week a little bit with this TikTok stuff. Did you guys experience anything over there? Threats? Was that did any students in your system make any threats, or was that just a general thing that?
Well, it was a nationwide TikTok initiative, and it was the third wave. First of all, it was the destruction of property associated with schools. Then it was the essential impact on teachers, whether it be touching them, hitting them,
assaulting
them, and then this one came into where it was a bomb threat, where it was a active shooter type thing. Yeah, we had that.
What do you think the answer is to stopping this?
I'll tell you one I'd like to see happen, and I know that groups like the ACL will go bonkers over this, but for juveniles during school, they should shut their cell phone off, with the exception of being able to dial 911 or their parents' phone numbers. Well, no cameras, no nothing.
I agree with
8 to 4, Monday through Friday, your cell phone's disabled except for being a call for emergency service.
I agree with
that's huge.
I agree with that, but this is something that happened outside outside of school. And Dave, I think you may have been involved.
But they do it at school too.
Is that where that's happening?
They're sending these videos, and they think it's cute. They think it's funny. And going back to what the chief was just talking about, you talk about deploying resources. Think about what happened in West Des Moines. They had 5 cars and officers and others at Stillwell.
One school.
Because these kids are clowning around on a mechanism we never had when we went to middle school or high school. They don't need that thing. It's just a source of problems.
Did you guys have one of those incidents where you had to go out to a school, or you just kind of alerted everybody to be on the lookout, or how did that?
No, we worked diligently with the Waukee Community School District, came up with a game plan, got the message out to all the parents, and then we as a department came up with a strategy as to how we're going to deploy our resources. So we have a thing called unobligated time, and that is when they're not on a call for service. And so we told them, park in front of a school, stop into the school, just let people know that we're
have a
physically
presence.
present there, and that we are actually there to protect them. So I made it a point to drive around to the majority of the schools. Our officers had them covered too. I love my team because, in fact, we got a call from this TikTok initiative, whatever happened, whatever you want to call it, where it was specific towards the South Middle School, and the fact that it was within this core group of about 30 students. They were communicating, saying that there was going to be a bomb go off the next day. And so we interviewed my guy stayed up till almost 1 a.m. interviewing all 30 of those kids, ensuring that there was no one there that had any intent on harming anybody. It was just shared information amongst the group. They don't know who spread it. And so we were there, and we had a heavy presence at the South Middle School. The problem is that, at Northwest on that day, Friday, there were 400 students that weren't in school just because of they were worried.
Yep.
In others, we averaged about 200 students, 200 to 150 that weren't present at school. These are kids that it's impacting their educational, ability to learn. And so we want them to feel safe in the schools, but the problem is it's things like this TikTok situation that cause them fear, and I hate that. I really do.
Do you think that's the purpose of this, is just to get out of school?
I don't know what it is.
Terrorize people? I mean, today you have those shootings, and when you actually have a shooting in a school and then somebody does this, it makes you wonder, what's the purpose in this stupidity?
I don't think the kids that are involved in it truly fully understand the magnitude of what they're doing. And they also operate under the false premise that there's no ramifications, repercussions, or consequences for doing this. And they find out, like them kids at Stillwell, they found out differently, you know. Right. So you play with fire, you're going to get burned.
Yeah,
and the parents need to set their middle school and high school kids down and tell them, do not do this.
You're going to be out of school. Yeah. You'll be learning from home, from your room, or something like that.
Well,
or
that's
worse.
That's the core to everything. You just hit the nail right on the head, and that it starts at home.
Exactly.
And instead of having the teachers be the parents, the parents need to do the parenting.
And nobody talks about that much. I don't know whether it's politically incorrect or whatever, but if I acted the way a lot of these kids do today in school, I wouldn't want to go home. My dad would have kicked my ass up between my shoulder blades.
We had a guest on last week, Nicole Hassel. She's running for city action East spot. She's a Republican, and she's a person of color. And her son's a person of color. Went to the basketball game with me, and I asked her this question. I said, "Nicole, do you talk to your son about how to interact with law enforcement? How to because he's a person of color deal? Is he scared, or are you scared about the interaction?" And she said, I don't talk to him about how to interact with law enforcement. I talk to him as a parent how to interact with people, period. Mm-hmm. I parent my child. I tell them, keep your head up, look them in the eye, talk clearly, show respect, be respectful. Mm-hmm. If you have a problem with somebody, you deal with, there's a certain way to do it. If more parents would do that, and Dave, and kind of what you're talking about, more parents would get involved in that instead of showing their kids that I'm going to side with you, and the school's wrong, or that police officer's wrong. It'd be a better place.
You should never blanketly condone inappropriate behavior as a parent, because that sends a message that that's okay. It's okay to do that, and then they go off and do all sorts of stupid things.
Yeah. John, something we always talk about with the Chiefs on here. We talk about squad cars a little bit because we kind of have an interest in that, and we do that. You guys run Fords out there, don't you?
We run a mixture of Fords and also Chevys.
So you run that new Tahoe that they got?
We do.
How do you like that? How do you think they compare? Price-wise, they're pretty similar, aren't they?
Actually, the Tahoes are cheaper. It's because of the one of the programs that Ford has, and I won't get into it. But anyway, with that, it makes the Tahoes actually cheaper.
Size-wise,
they're a lot roomier.
They're a lot more barrel.
We drive Explorers, police pursuit Explorers, and the guys don't like the new ones because they reduced the shoulder room for the big guys. They kind of made them into the Dodge Chargers that look really cool that State Patrol drives.
Right.
But you can't see out of them real well, but they look good. And the Explorer is more streamlined than the Tahoe, but the Tahoe has more room, period, and they've vastly improved it too.
Does the Ford have that feature? The Tahoes have a feature where if the officer has to bail out of the car, you can bail out, and the car will come to a stop. It'll drive. It won't go crazy. It'll keep driving. I don't know. Does the Fords have that same feature?
The ones we have don't.
Boy,
no.
that I mean, we were up at Carl's place up there, and we were taking a tour, and they were showing us the new trucks, and like I said, we got to bill Carl for this because we promote him. But he's got a hell of a facility.
Have you been up there, Carl Emergency Services?
Well, that's where our vehicles are worked on and everything.
So I'm sure you have been.
Yep. I haven't been a police officer as long as I have been, and seeing this transpire, repetitively as you get cars in and out of your fleet, I've never been to a shop like that where he was one-stop service for a patrol car being purchased, outfitted, and then coming into service and going out. He'll take your trades too. And he's doing a heck of a business up there. I just think that it's also a cost saver for a lot of municipalities too, because let them do it. You
Competitive pricing.
Yeah,
absolutely.
They do a heck of a job.
Remember, Carl Moyer, this is Dave Merrill and Roger French plugging you for free.
Cop Talk USA. It's a goodbye. Hey, have you seen much, speaking of the social justice and police reform, have you guys seen any of that out in your way, in your neck of the woods? Any protest, any of that kind of thing over the last couple of years?
You know what? I'm not going to say they're protests, because protest to me, it has a negative stigmatism to it.
Right.
It really does. The word protest itself. I would sit there and say that there were social initiatives that were freely, I guess, presented in a positive fashion out in Waukee.
Really?
I mean, yeah. I mean, you look at the marches that they had. We had several of those out there. One from the South Middle School up to the Public Safety Building. One was over from Hy-Vee, Hickman Road, then went over to the Palms Theater, Dartmoor, and then came back. And just a phenomenal event. It was non-disruptive. It
wasn't aggressive towards the law enforcement at all?
Absolutely not. In fact, it was very well organized. It was organized by the students there at the Waukee High School.
Okay.
They actually marched down. The mayor marched with them.
So when outside influences coming in,
you know what? There were some there, but I think that they
were kept in check.
recognized. It's like know your audience, and so they recognized exactly who was actually participating in this thing, what the reasoning was for, and the fact that they just wanted to show that there needs to be some reform in policing, and there does. Oh my gosh, and we've changed so much already. But especially, Dave, from when we started in law enforcement to where we are today. Yeah. But when they came in there, they had speeches there. They allowed me to talk to the crowd, and it was just a very, to me, beneficial statement that these kids did and made to a community that was willing to listen. And it was very well received, and I'll tell you, I was proud of Waukee for those events.
Yeah, it sounded like you guys had a more positive response than we've heard from others, and kudos to the folks out there for understanding. It's a conversation. Start the conversation. It's not a yelling match or name calling, or it's nothing
right,
about that.
Exactly.
I got a question for you, Chief. My wife and I, her parents lived in Waukee for years, and we were out in Waukee a couple of days ago.
Man, that's a breach of security. I gotta talk to the guys about that. I know.
Here's my question. I heard a rumor, and it seems this way to me, that the western suburban edge of Waukee now goes to Harlan, Iowa. Is that true?
No, it is not.
Hickman never ends. It just goes.
It just keeps going and going.
We're still in Waukee, baby. Yes, we are.
Well, that's a bedroom community, though. It really is.
It's a great community.
That's what you call it, a bedroom community.
Used to be, Roger. It used to be something where people wake up and they leave the community, and during the day there's nothing going on. And today that is not true.
Get some growth out there.
Yeah, it is.
John, I remember when my in-laws first bought their land. They bought land north of the Des Moines Golf and Country Club on University.
Yeah.
By homes of Brentwood, and they owned all that land and sold it. Blah blah blah. But I remember going over the interstate, and there was a DOT shop there on University. Yep. And the minute you got past that, it turned to gravel going to Waukee.
Do you remember we used to go out to Alice's restaurant?
Yes.
And there was gravel out there.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. It was so much fun.
If we would have only known, if we would have bought land, you and I never would have gone into police work.
Oh, my gosh. No.
You'd be a land baron.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. Oh, well, you never know.
No, Waukee's, I'll tell you what, they've got a bright future. I've got a year left in it. It's been probably the most, we accomplished great things when I was with the DCI. But the problem is that we were a state jurisdictional agency, and what I mean by that is we would go to the local law enforcement, we'd resolve the crime, and then we'd leave the community.
Right. And
now that I've had the ability to actually invest in the community, invest in its people, and invest in its future, it is the most rewarding time of my life. And I can't thank the city of Waukee enough for the experiences, the way they've made me feel. They've extended an olive branch to me, and then also the type of policing that we do.
Right.
I mean, we're strictly about transparency in operations and also about community outreach.
Well, you're a humble guy, John, and I know you don't like, blowing your own horn, but I'm going to tell you, your reputation with the DCI and your reputation with Waukee has been nothing but outstanding.
Well, I appreciate
You've always
that.
been
Thank you.
looked at as a solid, a competent guy who's well-spoken, who's going to go out and get the job done. And you and I have known each other for decades. When you were with DCI, I was with Des Moines, and we need a lot more chiefs of police like you.
Well, I appreciate that. I really do.
But I'll tell you what, when you retire,
Yes, sir.
and I've done that once, you're going to think you're on vacation for a while, that you're going back, and you ain't going back, brother.
I have a hunch that some golf is in his.
Oh,
I
a
can see
little bit,
golf. I
yeah.
can see warm weather.
Yeah,
maybe some
yeah.
beaches.
Yeah.
You know what I'm going to retire to? I'm going to retire to my family. And I got to say this out, just get it out there. I am blessed with my wife because she literally, and Dave, you know this, when you get in law enforcement, you have that passion.
Yeah.
It was intense for me. And so
Mm-hmm.
my main focus a lot of times was about the job.
Mm-hmm.
And I lost sight sometimes about the prioritization of that delicate,
Yep.
family business.
I did too.
And my wife has always been one that's been able to ground me and to sit there and say, come here and sit down. Come here, shut up.
Mm-hmm.
Come here, be here with the family.
Yeah.
They need you now. And
Yeah.
so, and it's because of that, she got a lot of times, Dave,
Oh, yeah.
she raised the kids.
Yeah.
And just did a phenomenal job. She's been, a phenomenal team member of mine. She's been a partner and my best friend. And so I'm
Yeah.
blessed. And
Yeah.
a lot of people don't have that in their life,
Yeah.
but I do. And so you guys say, hey, one person said, you know what? I know what you're retiring from, but I worry about what you're retiring to. And I laugh and smile because I'm retiring to my family.
Yeah.
It's going to
Yeah.
be fun. It
No,
really
bless
is.
you.
You'll have
Bless
fun.
you. And bless your wife. You
Yeah.
hit the nail right on the head. Cops who are in the game for decades sometimes lose track of how critically important and supportive their spouses are.
Yeah.
And I did that once upon a time and got back on track. And they worry about us. Are we coming home? When they watched the news on TV and you and I were there, while the news was being broadcast, investigating the news, our spouses are at home worried sick. And then we're so wrapped up in all the minutia of the job that you don't realize the stress it puts on our spouses. And so God bless all the wives and husbands of
gosh.
police
Well,
officers.
it's important when you retire too to have a plan.
Yeah.
We've seen officers that retire that sometimes it doesn't go so well, but I think for the most part, being with your family, going someplace, taking her and something she deserves. I mean, that makes sense.
Yep.
Makes total sense. Otherwise, you're going to end up like Dave Murillo.
You know what?
That's scary.
I could only aspire to be as successful as Dave is. I just really
Big Dave.
This is a highlight of my
It's
day.
Santa Dave here. What do you got big plans for Christmas? You're not going to the bowl, or are you going to the bowl? Are you going down to?
No, my wife just got back last night. Well, actually, she got back this morning. She flew in at 2 a.m. And so to do a turnaround and go right back to Florida, it's not going to pay dividends. And so, but I've got family coming in. I was an abused child growing up. I had 5 sisters.
Oh. Yeah.
And so with that, we're all going to get together.
You're going to relive some memories.
Yeah, we
Let 'em
are.
abuse you.
Oh my gosh! I'll tell you what. Growing up in a house of 5 sisters,
my
wow,
gosh.
some stories I could tell. But anyway, I've got a sister coming in from Columbus. I got some that possibly might come up from Kansas City, Olathe area, and so we're all going to get together these next few days and kind of just share memories of our mom
Cool.
and dad who both passed, and then just kind of catch up with who and what we are and where we are today.
Well, look, we've had you on today, and I appreciate you coming on. It's been a great show. We're over an hour now.
Yeah,
we've been going good.
I knew this
I do.
guy.
I
would
do
an
talking.
outstanding-
We'd be
he's
here
an
for 3 or 4 hours.
outstanding individual.
We got to get you
Yeah.
back on the show.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Because there's always stuff going on. You're going to be in place for another year.
Yes,
you got
I
another
am.
year out there. So, and of course, we're going to be talking about
Yep.
cycling, basketball, and doing
There's something I want to ask, though, a favor from the two of you. And that is
I
that,
feel
Dave,
this.
when you come to Waukee, could you let me know? Give me some advance notification so I can.
Yeah, you need that. You need that because, I very seldom let him come in my neighborhood. Here,
I get nosebleeds coming out here, John. And then the first thing I noticed out in Waukee, I told my wife, I said, too many Mexicans out here, you know.
We had Ray Gallardo was out here. Him and David, they were standing out front. And some neighbors came walking by, and Gallardo turns to me and goes, "I'll give you a quote for that roof up there." Gallardo,
Hey, I'll give you some price for that lawn care.
yeah. But anyway, look, it's been great having you on.
Yes.
Thank you.
And
Outstanding.
you do a great job out there. And the citizens, really quick, do you have a transition plan in place? Do you know who's going to replace you?
No, not yet. City Administrator Mormon, who actually is retiring April 1st, and then I'm going to be heading out the door afterwards. There's going to be a little bit of separation of time for his transition to take place. Brad Dietz taking over with the city. He's already the assistant city administrator.
Okay.
So phenomenal
They'll
individual.
do a search, probably, same thing. And
I think what they're going to do for the police department, they're going to do a nationwide search.
yeah.
And so
Yeah, it's
with
pretty
that, but
standard.
It's
It
a good,
is,
It's a
but-
good job. It's a good job.
I've got 3 lieutenants. Any one of the 3 could step up and continue on with the initiatives that we've got, the momentum, the culture. They recognize the city, the politics. They recognize the biggest thing is the customer base, our community members. So hopefully they'll look internal and also take on the outside, and
We
just
always-
kind of see who fares out.
Always supported Waukee. You know, my dad was a big supporter of Waukee.
Yes, he was.
He loved you. To
I
death.
loved
you,
him.
especially in Vegas when we got to there. We'll keep those stories quiet. yeah. In the limo.
Hey, what happens in Vegas does not stay in. Does not
Sometimes
stay.
Oh yeah, we got some. Well, look, John, thanks for coming out, my friend.
Absolutely.
Chief,
Thank you.
great
sir.
job.
you.
Yep.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Same to your wife. Well, there's another one in the show in the can.
Time
right?
flies.
We got to get John back on.
Oh, we
love
will.
him.
We'll get him back here, absolutely when he retires, just so he can tell us how that feels when he's a free man.
When he's free, he can tell the untold stories, all the secret stories.
And on a final note here, Roger and I, on behalf of the Cop Talk podcast, we want to wish all of our listeners a very Merry Christmas and the best of the new year. Enjoy your family and friends. Stay safe, and we'll talk at you soon.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Happy New Year's, everybody.
See you guys.
You've been listening to Cop Talk USA with your hosts, Murillo and French.